The Georgia heat was unforgiving that August afternoon, even for someone who'd spent 53 years living through southern summers. I stood across the street from the Biltmore Ballroom in downtown Atlanta, watching well-dressed guests stream through the ornate entrance. The building was one of those historic venues that screamed old money. White columns, marble steps, doormen in crisp uniforms, opening doors for people who looked like they belonged there. I didn't belong there. At least, that's what I'd been told. My name is Robert Chen, and I was about to crash my daughter's wedding. Let me back up. The invitation, or lack thereof, wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. 3 months ago, my daughter Michelle had called me from her apartment in Buckhead, her voice tight with the kind of controlled anger that reminded me painfully of her mother. "Dad, Brandon and I have been talking," she'd said, skipping any pleasantries. "We think it's best if you don't come to the wedding." I'd been standing in my small apartment in East Point, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process words that didn't make sense. "What? Michelle, baby, what are you talking about?" "Don't call me baby. I'm 28 years old." Her tone was ice. "Look, Brandon's family they're important people. His mother is on the board of 3 major companies. His father golfs with the lieutenant governor. This wedding is going to be covered in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution Society pages. And," my chest had tightened, "and you're a custodian, Dad. You clean buildings for a living. Brandon's friends, his family, they have expectations, standards." The words had hit like physical blows. "Standards? Michelle, I raised you, by myself. After your mother passed, I worked 3 jobs to put you through Spelman." "I know what you did," she'd interrupted, her voice cracking slightly. "And I'm grateful. But that was then. This is my future, Brandon's future, our future together. You being there it's going to raise questions I don't want to answer." "Questions about what? About your father who loves you. Questions about why the bride's father looks like he should be serving drinks instead of giving her away. I'm sorry, Dad, I really am. But this is how it has to be." She'd hung up before I could respond. That conversation had been 3 months ago. 3 months of sleepless nights, of staring at old photos of Michelle as a little girl, her gap-toothed smile, her Sunday church dresses, her high school graduation where she'd hugged me so tight and whispered, "We did it, Daddy. We actually did it." Where had that girl gone? Now, standing across from her wedding venue, I wore my only suit, 15 years old, bought for a funeral, cleaned and pressed until it looked almost presentable. My shoes were polished to a mirror shine. I'd gotten a haircut yesterday, my salt and pepper hair cut close and neat. At 53, I kept myself in decent shape. The physical work helped with that. I wasn't embarrassing to look at, I told myself, just not wealthy. A Mercedes pulled up, and I watched a couple emerge. The woman wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The man's watch caught the sunlight, a Rolex maybe. They laughed about something as they walked inside, casual and comfortable in their affluence. I took a deep breath and crossed the street. The doorman's eyes flickered over me as I approached, a quick assessment that I'd seen 1,000 times in my life. His smile was professional but cool. "Good afternoon, sir. Are you here for the Morrison-Chen wedding?" Morrison, Brandon's last name. Michelle had already decided to take it, eager to shed Chen like old skin. "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Your invitation, please?" I'm the bride's father, Robert Chen." The doorman's expression shifted to confusion. He glanced at a clipboard, running his finger down a list. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see your name on the guest list." "That's a mistake. I'm Michelle Chen's father." "Let me check with the wedding coordinator." He spoke into a radio clipped to his lapel, turning slightly away. I caught fragments. "Says he's the bride's father. Not on the list. Should I A woman in a sharp black pantsuit appeared moments later, her expression professionally neutral, but her eyes sharp. "Mr. Chen? I'm Amanda, the wedding coordinator. I'm afraid there's been some confusion. The bride's father isn't listed among the attendees." "There's no confusion," I said quietly. "I'm her father, and I'd like to see my daughter get married." Amanda's face softened slightly, genuine sympathy breaking through her professional mask. "Sir, I understand, but this is a private event. Without an invitation or being on the guest list, I can't allow you inside. I'm very sorry. Can you at least tell Michelle I'm here? Let her decide." She hesitated, and in that hesitation I saw an opening. But before either of us could speak, a commanding voice cut through the moment. "Is there a problem here?" I turned to see a tall white man in his late 50s, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. His presence radiated authority and old money, the kind that came from generations of never worrying about bills. His steel-grey eyes assessed me with the same dismissive glance the doorman had used. "Mr. Morrison," Amanda said quickly. "I'm Robert Chen," I said, extending my hand. "Michelle's father." He didn't shake it. His eyes narrowed. "Michelle's father is deceased." The words were so absurd I almost laughed. "What? No, I'm standing right here." Brandon was very clear about this," Morrison continued, his tone suggesting I was either lying or delusional. "His bride is an orphan. Tragic story. Both parents died when she was young. She was raised by her grandmother." My mind reeled. Michelle had erased me completely, killed me off in her story? "That's a lie," I said, my voice harder now. "I raised Michelle. By myself. Her mother died when she was 7, but I've been here every day since. I put her through college. Security," Morrison called over his shoulder. "Wait," I said urgently. "Just let me talk to Michelle. 5 minutes. If she tells me to leave, I'll go." "My son is marrying into a respectable family," Morrison said coldly. "Not some scam artist looking for a payday. Get him out of here." 2 security guards materialized, both large men in dark suits. One took my arm, not roughly, but firmly. "Sir, you need to leave," he said quietly. "I just want to see my daughter," I said, hating the desperate edge in my voice. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to see her get married." "Let's not make a scene," the other guard said, his hand on my other arm. They were escorting me back down the marble steps when I heard it, a voice I'd recognize anywhere, even though it had been 3 months since I'd last heard it. "Dad?" I turned. Michelle stood in the entrance wearing her wedding dress. She looked beautiful. The dress was elegant, her hair swept up, professional makeup making her look older, more sophisticated. But her eyes were wide with horror. "Michelle," I said, my voice breaking. "Baby, you look—" "What are you doing here?" she hissed, rushing down the steps. "I told you not to come. I had to see you. I'm your father." "You're embarrassing me." Her voice dropped to an urgent whisper. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Brandon's parents think my family is dead. They think I'm from a good family." "You are from a good family," I said, my heart cracking. "Your mother was an incredible woman. I've worked hard my whole life to provide for you. As a janitor, Dad. You're a janitor." She looked around frantically, seeing guests starting to notice the commotion. "Please, if you ever loved me, you'll leave. Right now." Before I could respond, a young man appeared beside her. Brandon Morrison III, I presumed. He was handsome in that generic way that money often produces. Good haircut, straight teeth, confidence born from never having to worry. He put a proprietary hand on Michelle's waist and looked at me with undisguised contempt. "Is this the problem?" he asked Michelle, but his eyes stayed on me. "I'm Robert Chen," I said, straightening my spine. "Michelle's father." Brandon's face twisted with anger. You've got some nerve, old man. I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but my fiancé's parents are dead. Now I suggest you leave before I have you arrested for trespassing. It's not a scam. Michelle, tell him, I don't know this man, Michelle said, her voice loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. I've never seen him before. The words were a knife to my chest. I stared at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and saw no recognition, no love. No acknowledgement of the thousands of nights I'd stayed up with her when she was sick, the parent-teacher conferences, the dance recitals, the graduations, the tears I'd dried, the dreams I'd encouraged. She'd erased all of it, erased me. You're pathetic, Brandon said, his voice dripping with disdain. An annoying beggar showing up at a wedding trying to claim some connection to the bride. Security, get this man out of here, and if he comes back, call the police. The guards' grips tightened. They began pulling me away. Michelle, I called out, one last desperate attempt. Your mother's name was Jennifer. You were 7 when she died. Brain aneurysm, completely unexpected. You cried for 3 days straight. I held you through every tear. You had a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hoppy that you slept with until you were 12. Your favorite food is my fried rice, the recipe your grandmother taught me. I said I don't know him, Michelle shouted, her face flushed. Get him out of here! The crowd had grown larger now, well-dressed guests whispering behind manicured hands. I saw judgment in their eyes, saw them looking at my old suit and my calloused hands and making assumptions. The security guards pulled me to the street, releasing me only when we were a full block away from the venue. Don't come back, one of them said, not unkindly. Whatever your story is, man, they don't want you there. Let it go. They walked away, leaving me standing on a downtown Atlanta street corner, my heart shattered into pieces I wasn't sure I could put back together. I made it 2 blocks before I had to sit down on a bench, my legs suddenly unable to support me. The afternoon heat pressed down like a weight, and I buried my face in my hands. 21 years. 21 years of being her father, and she'd discarded me like I was nothing, like I'd never existed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stay away from the wedding. If you come back, we will press charges. You've been warned. I stared at the message, then at the wedding venue in the distance. Through the large windows, I could see people mingling, champagne glasses catching the light, laughter I couldn't hear but could imagine. Michelle was in there somewhere, probably relieved I was gone. Probably already explaining me away to anyone who'd witnessed the scene. Some crazy person, mistaken identity, nothing to worry about. I'd failed her. Somehow, in all those years of working myself to exhaustion to give her opportunities, I'd failed to teach her the most important thing, that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account or their job title. Or maybe I had taught her that, and she'd simply decided I was wrong. The sun began to set, painting the Atlanta skyline in shades of orange and gold, beautiful and indifferent. I sat on that bench for hours, unable to make myself leave, unable to fully accept that my daughter's wedding was happening without me. Around 8 p.m., I finally stood up. My suit was wrinkled from sitting, my tie crooked. I probably looked exactly like what Brandon had called me, an annoying beggar. I walked to the nearest MARTA station, descended into the fluorescent-lit underground, and rode the train back to East Point. The car was mostly empty, just me and a few other people who looked as tired and defeated as I felt. My apartment was dark when I got home. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, living room, barely big enough for a couch and TV. But it was clean. I kept it clean. It was what I did. Cleaned things, maintained order in spaces other people occupied. I sat on my couch without turning on lights and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through photos of Michelle, hundreds of them spanning 21 years, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, her first day of kindergarten, her Spelman graduation where she'd worn her cap and gown with so much pride. In every photo where I appeared beside her, she was smiling, happy, loved. When had that changed? When had I become an embarrassment instead of her father? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press accept. Mr. Chen? A woman's voice, cultured and professional. Yes? My name is Catherine Morrison. I'm Brandon's mother. I sat up straighter. Mrs. Morrison. I'm calling to apologize for what happened today. The way you were treated was inexcusable. She paused. And to ask if we could meet. Tomorrow, if possible. There are some things I think we need to discuss. I don't understand. Neither do I, Mr. Chen. But I'd like to. Would you meet me for coffee, say 10 a.m. at the Starbucks on Peachtree Street near Lenox Square? I should have said no, should have protected myself from further humiliation. But something in her voice, genuine curiosity, perhaps even respect, made me answer differently. I'll be there, I said. Thank you. And Mr. Chen, wear whatever you're comfortable in. This isn't about appearances. She hung up, leaving me sitting in the dark, wondering what possible reason Brandon Morrison's mother could have for wanting to meet the man her son had just had thrown out of his wedding. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at my ceiling, replaying the wedding scene over and over, Michelle's face when she denied knowing me, Brandon calling me an annoying beggar, the security guard's hands on my arms. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made coffee. My apartment faced east, and I watched the sun rise over Atlanta through my small kitchen window. The city woke up gradually, lights flickering on in other apartments, early commuters heading to MARTA, the distant sound of traffic building like a tide. I thought about not going to meet Catherine Morrison. What was the point? Michelle had made her choice. But curiosity, and maybe a desperate hope that someone from Brandon's family might advocate for me, made me shower, dress, and catch the train to Buckhead. The Starbucks was in an upscale shopping area, surrounded by boutiques that sold single items for more than I made in a week. I arrived 15 minutes early and ordered a black coffee, sitting at a table near the window where I could watch for Mrs. Morrison. I recognized her immediately when she arrived at exactly 10 a.m. She was in her late 50s, elegant in casual slacks and a silk blouse, her blonde hair styled simply but expensively. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about making rent. But when she saw me and walked over, her smile was genuine and warm. "Mr. Chen, I'm Catherine Morrison." She extended her hand, and unlike her husband, she waited for me to shake it. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, standing. "Can I get you another coffee, a pastry?" "I'm fine, thank you." She ordered for herself some complicated latte and returned to the table, settling into the chair across from me with the kind of grace that came from years of country club luncheons and charity galas. "I imagine you're wondering why I wanted to meet," she began. The thought crossed my mind. "Yesterday, after the incident, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, the details you knew about Michelle, her mother's name, the stuffed rabbit, the fried rice." She studied my face. "Those weren't things a stranger would know." "I'm her father," I said simply. "So I've come to believe," which raises some very troubling questions about what my son has been told. She took a sip of her latte. "Tell me about Michelle, from the beginning." So I did. I told her about Jennifer, my wife of 5 years, who died suddenly when Michelle was 7. I told her about the struggle of being a single father, working as a custodian at office buildings because the hours were flexible enough to be there when Michelle got home from school. I told her about helping with homework at the kitchen table, about teaching her to ride a bike in the parking lot of our apartment complex, about scraping together money for her to take dance classes because she'd begged for them. I told her about working 3 jobs to afford Spellman's tuition, about how proud I'd been when she got accepted, about the slow distancing that had begun during her college years as she made friends whose fathers were doctors and lawyers and executives. Catherine listened without interrupting, her expression growing more troubled with each detail. "She told Brandon her parents were dead," she said finally. "She said she was raised by her grandmother in California, who also passed away recently. She said she had no family." The words hurt, but they didn't surprise me. Her grandmother, my mother, is actually in a nursing home in College Park. She has dementia. Doesn't remember much anymore, but she's alive. "May I ask you something personal, Mr. Chen?" "Go ahead." "Why did Michelle cut you out of her life?" I'd asked myself that question 1,000 times. I think I embarrassed her. My job, my income, the way I talk, the way I look. None of it fits the image she wanted to project. Brandon's family is wealthy, connected. I'm a custodian who never finished college. I think she decided I was a liability to her new life. Catherine's jaw tightened. That's unconscionable. It's her choice. It's a betrayal. She said it with such conviction that I felt something loosen in my chest, validation from an unexpected source. "Mr. Chen, I need to tell you something. Yesterday after you left, I did some research. I hope you don't mind, but I looked you up." I tensed. And I found something very interesting." She pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, then turned it to show me. "Is this you?" It was a newspaper article from 15 years ago. I recognized the photo immediately. Me, younger, accepting an award from the mayor. "The Atlanta Community Hero Award," I said quietly. "Yeah, that's me." "You saved 3 children from a burning apartment building," Catherine read from the article. "Robert Chen, a custodian at the Midtown Tower complex, noticed smoke coming from a 3rd-floor unit during his night shift. Despite having no firefighting training, Mr. Chen entered the building and carried 3 children, ages 4, 6, and 8, to safety before firefighters arrived. The children's mother, who had run to a neighbor's to call 911, credits Mr. Chen with saving her children's lives." I remembered that night vividly. The smoke, the heat, the sound of children crying, the weight of the 6-year-old in my arms as I carried her down the stairs. "The mayor called you a hero," Catherine continued. "The city gave you this award. You were in the newspaper, on the news." She looked at me. "Does Michelle know about this?" "She was there. She was 13. She stood next to me when I accepted the award. She told everyone at school her dad was a hero." I smiled sadly. "I guess somewhere between 13 and 28, that stopped mattering." Catherine set down her phone. "Mr. Chen, may I call you Robert?" "Of course. Robert, I need to be honest with you. When I married my husband 30 years ago, I married into money and expectations. The Morrison family has certain standards, and for years I went along with them. I smiled at the right parties, joined the right clubs, made sure our children understood their position in society." She paused. "But somewhere along the way, I forgot that position and character aren't the same thing." "I'm not sure I follow." "My son is marrying your daughter. They stood in a church yesterday. Well, Michelle stood in a church, and she lied. She lied about who she was, where she came from, who raised her, and my son either doesn't know he's marrying a liar, or worse, he knows and doesn't care. Either way, I raise someone who thinks that's acceptable." "Michelle's a good person," I found myself saying, defensive even after everything. "She's just confused about what matters." "That's generous of you. More generous than I'd be." Catherine leaned forward. "I want to fix this, or at least I want to try. My husband is hosting a reception dinner tonight at our home in Roswell, a small gathering for close family and friends of the newlyweds. I'd like you to be there." I nearly laughed. "Mrs. Morrison, Catherine, I appreciate the thought, but I was thrown out of the wedding yesterday. Michelle doesn't want me there. Michelle doesn't get to erase her father like he never existed. And Brandon doesn't get to marry someone without knowing the truth about who she is. Her eyes were fierce. You're right that I can't force Michelle to have a relationship with you, but I can force the truth into the open, and I can make sure my son knows exactly who he married. That could destroy their marriage before it even starts. If their marriage can't survive the truth, then it deserves to be destroyed. I sat back, processing her words. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to see Michelle's face when she realized she couldn't erase me, wanted Brandon to know the truth, wanted some vindication for the humiliation I'd endured. But another part, the part that had held Michelle when she cried, that had cheered at her dance recitals, that had beamed with pride at her college graduation, that part didn't want to hurt her. What would you want me to do? I asked finally. Come to the dinner, 7 p.m. Wear that same suit if you want. It's perfectly fine. When the time is right, I'll introduce you. Not as some stranger crashing the event, but as Michelle's father. The truth will come out, and we'll see what happens next. Your husband won't allow it. He's the one who had me thrown out yesterday. The dinner is at our home. I'm the hostess. And my husband, for all his faults, knows better than to cross me in my own house. She smiled slightly. We've been married 30 years. I've earned some leverage. I thought about my empty apartment, about another night of staring at photos of a daughter who'd disowned me. I thought about Jennifer and what she would have said about all this. She'd been fierce when it came to protecting our family. She would have been devastated by Michelle's betrayal. Okay, I said, I'll come. Catherine's face lit up. Thank you. This takes courage, Robert. I know that. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. She pulled out a business card and wrote an address on the back. This is our home in Roswell. Come at 7. And Robert, don't let anyone make you feel small. You're a hero. The mayor said so. A man who worked 3 jobs to put his daughter through college. A man who saved children from a burning building. That's worth more than any bank account. After she left, I sat in the Starbucks for another hour, the card in my hand, wondering if I was making a terrible mistake. I spent the afternoon at my mother's nursing home in College Park. She was in the common room, watching The Price is Right without much comprehension. At 82, dementia had taken most of her memories, but occasionally she'd have moments of clarity. "Hi, Ma," I said, sitting beside her. She looked at me, her eyes vague. "Do I know you?" "I'm Robert, your son." "Robert?" She tested the name. I had a son named Robert. He was a good boy, always helped his mother. "That's me, Ma." No. My Robert is young. You're too old." She turned back to the TV. I held her hand anyway, watching her watch the game show, and thought about Michelle. Would she visit me when I was old, or would I end up like this, alone, half forgotten, waiting for a daughter who never came? At 6:30, I left the nursing home and drove to Roswell. The Morrison home was in an exclusive gated community, the kind where the houses all had names instead of numbers. Blackwood Estate, the sign read. The gate guard checked my name against a list. Catherine had added me and waved me through. The house was massive, not just large, massive. Colonial architecture, circular driveway with a fountain, impeccably landscaped grounds. My entire apartment could have fit in their garage. I parked my 15-year-old Honda Civic between a Tesla and a Porsche and felt the familiar weight of inadequacy. But Catherine's words echoed, "Don't let anyone make you feel small." I straightened my tie, checked my reflection in the car window, and walked to the front door. A uniformed server answered, took my name, and directed me to the back terrace where guests were gathering. I walked through the house, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers and art that was probably worth more than I'd earn in my lifetime, and stepped onto a terrace overlooking a pool and manicured gardens. There were maybe 30 people there, all dressed in cocktail attire, all looking comfortable and wealthy. I spotted Michelle immediately, wearing an elegant dress, laughing at something one of Brandon's friends was saying. She hadn't seen me yet. Catherine appeared at my elbow. "Robert, you came. I'm so glad. I'm starting to question my judgment." "Nonsense. Come, let me introduce you to some people." She was deliberate about it, I realized. She introduced me to aunts and uncles, family friends, business associates. Each time, she said the same thing. "This is Robert Chen, Michelle's father. He's a truly remarkable man. Saved 3 children from a fire, you know. The mayor gave him an award." I watched the ripple effect. Watched people glance toward Michelle with confusion. Watched whispers start. Watched the social fabric of the evening shift. Michelle noticed around the 4th introduction. I saw her freeze, saw her eyes widen when she spotted me talking to Brandon's aunt. She said something quick to Brandon and started making her way over, her face a mask of controlled panic. But Catherine got to her first. "Michelle, darling, I was just telling everyone about your father. Such a modest man. He didn't even mention that hero award when we met this morning." Michelle's face went pale. "Mrs. Morrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding at all. Robert and I had a lovely talk this morning. He told me all about raising you after your mother passed. Such a difficult thing being a single father." Catherine's voice was pleasant, but her eyes were steel. "I can't imagine how hard it must have been, working 3 jobs to pay for Spellman." Brandon appeared, his face dark with anger. "Mother, what is this? I told you, Michelle's parents are dead." "Funny thing about that," Catherine interrupted. "Robert here seems very much alive, as does Michelle's grandmother, who's in a nursing home in College Park. Strange that you never mentioned visiting her, Michelle." The terrace had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. "This is ridiculous," Brandon said, his voice tight. "Michelle, tell them." But Michelle was staring at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw something other than anger or embarrassment in her eyes. I saw fear. "Hi, baby," I said quietly. "You look beautiful." And then, to everyone's shock, including my own, my daughter burst into tears. Michelle's tears were silent at first, just wetness streaming down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. Then she made a sound, a small broken sob, and the dam broke completely. "I'm sorry," she gasped, her hands covering her face. "I'm so sorry. Daddy, I'm so sorry." The word "daddy" rippled through the gathered guests like a shockwave. I heard gasps, murmurs, saw people pulling out phones to text others who'd missed the drama. Brandon stood frozen, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that might have been betrayal. "What is she talking about? Michelle, what's going on?" But Catherine had already taken control. "I think we should move this conversation somewhere private. Robert, Michelle, Brandon, please come with me. The rest of you, enjoy the evening." She guided us, herded us, really, into the house and to a study, closing the door firmly behind us. The room was all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books that looked more decorative than read. Michelle sank into a chair, still crying. Brandon stood stiffly by the fireplace. Catherine positioned herself near the door, arms crossed, and I stood in the middle, feeling like I'd stumbled into a play without knowing my lines. "Someone start talking," Catherine said. "Michelle, is Robert your father or not?" Michelle nodded, unable to speak. "And your parents aren't dead?" Another nod. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Just my mom. She died when I was 7. Brandon's face had gone white. "You lied to me about your entire family?" "I didn't mean to," Michelle said desperately. It started small. When we first met, you asked about my family, and I said they were gone because it was easier than explaining." She stopped, glanced at me, then away. Explaining what? I asked, my voice rough. Explaining that your father is a janitor, that I'm not rich, that I don't play golf with governors? You don't understand, Michelle said, anger creeping into her voice even through the tears. You don't know what it's like, being the scholarship kid at Spelman. Everyone else had parents who were doctors and lawyers and executives. They had country club memberships and summer homes. And I had, she gestured at me, I had a dad who showed up to parents' weekend in his work uniform because he had to go back to his night shift. The words stung, but I'd suspected as much. So you decided it was easier to kill me off? No, I never meant for it to go that far. But then Brandon and I got serious, and I'd already told him my parents were dead, and I didn't know how to take it back. And then his parents wanted to meet my family, and I panicked and said my grandmother had just died too. Your grandmother, who's still alive, Catherine interjected. I know, Michelle's voice rose. I know it was wrong, but by then I was in too deep. If I told the truth, Brandon would know I'd been lying from the beginning. So you just kept lying? Brandon's voice was tight. You let me believe you were an orphan. You let my parents treat you like you had no family. You let me think I knew you, and all of it was a lie. Not all of it, Michelle pleaded. My feelings for you are real. Everything about us is real. Except the foundation it's built on, Catherine said quietly. Michelle, dear, you've built your marriage on sand. I watched my daughter fall apart, and despite everything, despite the pain she'd caused me, despite the humiliation of being thrown out of her wedding, I felt my father's instinct kick in, the urge to protect her, even from herself. Brandon, I said, and everyone turned to look at me. I know you're angry. You have every right to be, but I want you to understand something about Michelle. Dad, don't... Michelle started. When her mother died, Michelle was devastated. She was 7 years old, and the most important person in her world just disappeared. One day her mom was making her breakfast, the next day she was gone. I looked at my daughter, remembering that little girl. She became afraid of losing people, of being abandoned, and somewhere along the way she decided it was safer to be the one who left first. That doesn't excuse lying, Brandon said. No, it doesn't, but it might explain it. I turned to Michelle. Baby, I know why you pushed me away. I know you were ashamed of me, and yes, that hurts. It hurts more than I can say. But I also know that fear, the fear of not being good enough, of not belonging, that's a powerful thing. It makes us do things we're not proud of. Michelle was crying again, but softer now. You shouldn't forgive me. After what I did yesterday, how I treated you. I'm not saying I forgive you, not yet. You can't just apologize and have everything go back to normal. I paused. But I am saying I understand why you did it, and I'm saying that if you want to fix this, fix us, I'm willing to try. Catherine was watching me with something like respect. Robert, you're a better person than most. Or a bigger fool. Maybe both. She turned to Brandon. And you, my son, what do you plan to do? Brandon was staring at Michelle like he'd never seen her before. I don't know. I need time to think. This is... He ran a hand through his hair. We just got married yesterday, and I'm finding out my wife is someone completely different than who I thought she was. I'm not different, Michelle said desperately. I'm still me. I come with more baggage than you knew about. Baggage? Brandon's voice rose. You call having a living father baggage? Most people would call that a blessing, but you treated him like he was some shameful secret. Because to your family he is, Michelle shot back, standing up. Don't pretend like your parents would have been thrilled to meet a custodian. Don't pretend like your father wouldn't have looked down on him, the same way he did yesterday when he had him thrown out. That's different. Dad thought he was some con artist. He thought that because it was easier than believing someone like my dad could be connected to someone like us. Michelle's voice cracked. Your family has money and connections and power. My dad cleans toilets for a living. How was I supposed to tell you that? By being honest, Brandon shouted. By trusting that I loved you enough not to care. Would you have? Michelle asked quietly. Would you really not have cared? The question hung in the air. Brandon opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The hesitation told us everything. That's what I thought, Michelle whispered. Catherine sighed heavily. Brandon, go back to the party. Make excuses. Tell people Michelle isn't feeling well. We'll continue this conversation later. Mother? Now, Brandon. He looked like he wanted to argue, but 30 years of maternal authority won out. He left, closing the door harder than necessary. Catherine turned to Michelle. Sit down, dear. We're not done. Michelle sat, looking exhausted. I remained standing, not sure where I fit in this scene. Michelle, I'm going to be very direct with you, Catherine began. What you did to your father is unconscionable. But what concerns me more is what you did to my son. You entered a marriage built on lies. That's not just unfair to Brandon. It's a foundation that will crumble the first time you face real adversity. I love Brandon, Michelle said. I don't doubt that. But love without honesty is just a pretty lie. Catherine paused. Do you know why I wanted to meet your father today? Michelle shook her head. Because when he was being escorted out yesterday, he didn't curse or threaten or make a scene. He simply said he wanted to see his daughter get married. And when Brandon called him an annoying beggar, he didn't lash out. He just looked heartbroken. Catherine's voice softened. I've met a lot of people in my life, Michelle. Rich people, powerful people, people with every advantage. And I can tell you that the measure of a person isn't their bank account. It's how they treat others when they have nothing to gain. I know my dad is a good person. Then why were you so desperate to hide him? Catherine asked. Was it really about Brandon's family, or was it about your own shame? Michelle was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, both. At least you're being honest now. Catherine stood. I'm going to give you and your father some time to talk, privately. And Michelle, if you want to save your marriage, you need to start by being honest with yourself about why you destroyed your relationship with the one person who loved you unconditionally. She left, and suddenly it was just me and Michelle in the study. My daughter and I, face to face, with 21 years of history and 3 months of betrayal between us. I really am sorry, Dad, Michelle said finally. I know. I was so awful to you yesterday, saying I didn't know you, letting Brandon call you those things. An annoying beggar, I said. Yeah, that was a highlight. I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth. I sat down across from her. Michelle, when did I become someone you were ashamed of? She was quiet, picking at her manicured nails. It wasn't sudden, it was gradual. When I got to Spellman, everyone else seemed so polished, so sophisticated. They talked about their families' businesses and vacation homes and legacy admissions, and when they asked about my family, I didn't know what to say. You could have said your dad worked hard to put you through school. I did at first. But I saw how they looked at me when I said you were a custodian, the pity, the slight distancing, like I was interesting as a diversity statistic, but not someone they'd actually want to be close friends with. So you started lying. Small lies at first. I'd say you were in facilities management instead of custodian, that you worked in corporate real estate instead of cleaning office buildings. Little adjustments that made people treat me differently. She looked up, her eyes red. And it worked, Dad. People respected me more, included me in things. I got invited to the right parties, joined the right organizations. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. And all it cost was your father. She flinched. I didn't think of it that way. I thought I was just protecting myself, building a better future by erasing your past. Yes, she whispered. And I know how terrible that sounds. I know what it says about me. But Dad, you don't understand what it's like to always be the poor kid, to wear thrift store clothes while everyone else has designer labels, to work study jobs while your friends are doing unpaid internships because their parents cover their expenses, to feel like you're always one step behind, always trying to catch up. I did understand, actually, better than she knew. I'd grown up poor too, the son of Chinese immigrants who worked in restaurants and laundromats. I'd been the kid with the free lunch ticket, the one wearing hand-me-downs. I knew exactly what she was talking about. But I'd also learned something she hadn't, that there was no shame in honest work, in providing for your family, in doing your best with what you had. Your mother and I were poor when we got married, I said. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment in College Park. I was working 2 jobs. She was waitressing. We ate ramen most nights. But we were happy, Michelle. We had each other, we had dreams, and we had integrity. I have integrity. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you traded your integrity for acceptance. You decided that being liked by rich people was more important than being honest about who you are. That's not fair, isn't it? I leaned forward. Michelle, I'm not angry that you wanted more than I could give you. I'm not angry that you were ambitious, that you wanted nice things, that you wanted to marry into a wealthy family. I'm angry that you felt like you had to destroy me to get those things. I didn't destroy you. You told Brandon I was dead. You told his family I was dead. You erased me from your history like I never existed. My voice was rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Do you have any idea what that feels like, to be declared dead by your own child? Michelle was crying again. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. You hurt me more than I knew I could be hurt. Yesterday, when you looked at me and said you didn't know me, I had to stop my throat tight. That was worse than when your mother died, because at least when Jennifer died, it wasn't a choice. She didn't choose to leave me. But you did. I was scared. Of what? Of me loving you? Of me being proud of you? Of me showing up to support you? I shook my head. The only thing you should have been scared of was losing yourself. And that's exactly what you did. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, I could hear the party continuing, laughter, music, the clink of glasses, normal celebration sounds, while inside this room, everything was falling apart. What do I do now? Michelle asked finally. How do I fix this? I don't know if you can. Not completely. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. But if you want to try, you start by being honest. With Brandon, with his family, with yourself. You own what you did. You face the consequences. And you figure out who you want to be. Someone who's ashamed of where she came from, or someone who's proud of what she overcame. I am proud of what we overcame. Then act like it. Stop hiding me. Stop being ashamed of the fact that your father works hard for a living. Stop pretending that money and status are what make someone valuable. I moved toward the door. I'm going to leave now. Catherine was kind to invite me, but I think I've caused enough disruption for one evening. Dad, wait. Michelle stood. Can I see you again? Can we talk more? I turned back. My daughter stood there in her expensive dress, her makeup ruined, looking young and lost and scared. Part of me wanted to pull her into a hug and tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't, not yet. That depends on you, I said. If you want a relationship with me, you're going to have to choose it. Publicly, not hidden away where Brandon's friends can't see. not explained away as charity work or community service, a real relationship where you acknowledge that I'm your father and you're not ashamed of that fact. I'm not ashamed. Prove it. Introduce me to your friends. Bring Brandon to my apartment. Visit your grandmother with me. Show me that I'm not just someone you're willing to acknowledge in private, but hide in public. Michelle nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. We'll see. I opened the door. Good night, Michelle. Dad. Her voice was small. I really am sorry for all of it. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough. You need to be better. I left the study and walked back through the Morrison house. Catherine was in the hallway, and she walked with me to the door. That was brave, she said. What you said to her. Or stupid. I'm still not sure which. Sometimes the bravest thing is setting boundaries with the people we love. She paused at the door. Robert, I want you to know, whatever happens with Michelle and Brandon's marriage, you have my respect and my support if you need it. Thank you. That means more than you know. One more thing. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. This is my daughter, Caroline. She's 26, works in non-profit management. She's mentioned wanting to start a mentoring program for first-generation college students, kids whose parents didn't go to college, who need guidance navigating that world. I wasn't sure where she was going with this. I think you'd be an excellent mentor, Catherine continued. Someone who worked multiple jobs to put their child through school, who understands the struggles these kids face. Would you be interested? Yeah, I would. I'll have Caroline contact you. She smiled. Good things should come to good people, Robert. Not always, maybe, but sometimes. I drove home through the dark Atlanta streets, my mind spinning. The evening had been surreal, confronting Michelle, watching her marriage potentially crumble, connecting with Catherine Morrison of all people. When I got back to my apartment, I sat on my couch with a beer and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to my photos, to the album labeled Michelle. There were hundreds of photos spanning 21 years. But now, looking at them, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In almost every photo, Michelle was smiling, happy, loved. I'd given her that. A childhood full of love, despite our financial struggles, despite losing her mother, despite everything working against us. I'd made sure she knew she was valued and cherished. She'd forgotten that somewhere along the way, but maybe, if she was willing to do the work, she could remember. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Mr. Jen, this is Caroline Morrison. My mother told me about your conversation. Would you be available for coffee this week to discuss the mentoring program? Also, for what it's worth, my mother doesn't give her respect easily. If she thinks you're a good person, you are. I smiled and texted back, coffee sounds great. And thank you. Another text came through, this one from Michelle. Dad, I meant what I said. I want to fix this. I want to be better. Can we have lunch this week? My treat. Wherever you want to go. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thursday. The Waffle House on Moreland Ave. Noon. It was a test, I realized. The Waffle House, where I'd eaten breakfast 1,000 times, where the servers knew my name and my order, where everything was cheap and unpretentious and working class. If Michelle could meet me there, could sit across from me in that environment without shame, maybe there was hope. I'll be there, she texted back immediately. I set down my phone and finished my beer, looking around my small apartment. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, none of the luxury of the Morrison estate, but it was mine, earned through honest work and sacrifice. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel ashamed of it. Thursday arrived with typical August humidity, the kind that made Atlanta feel like a sauna. I got to the Waffle House 15 minutes early, taking my usual seat at the counter. Rita, the server who'd been working there for 20 years, poured me coffee without asking. "You're here early, Robert. Hot date." She grinned, showing the gap between her front teeth. "Meeting my daughter. Michelle. I haven't seen her in years. She coming back to visit?" Something like that. At exactly noon, the door opened and Michelle walked in. She dressed down, jeans and a simple blouse, but she still looked out of place among the truckers and construction workers who made up the lunch crowd. Her eyes swept the restaurant, and I saw her take in the worn booths, the scuffed floors, the grease-stained menus. Then she saw me and walked over. "Hi, Dad." "Michelle, you made it." "Of course I made it." She slid onto the stool next to me, and Rita appeared immediately. "Michelle Chen, as I live and breathe. Girl, you've grown up gorgeous." Rita hugged her over the counter. "Your daddy talks about you all the time, so proud of his college graduate." Michelle's eyes filled with tears. "He talks about me all the time. My daughter this, my daughter that. Bragged to everyone when you got into Spellman." Rita pulled out her order pad. "Now what can I get you, honey?" Michelle ordered a waffle and eggs, and Rita headed to the kitchen, leaving us alone in the din of the restaurant. "You come here often?" Michelle asked. 3-4 times a week. The food's good and cheap. Rita and the other servers, they're good people." "You talk about me. You're my daughter. Of course I talk about you." She was quiet, stirring her coffee. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About proving I'm not ashamed of you. About being better. And I talked to Brandon. Really talked. No more lies, no more hiding." She took a breath. "I told him everything. About growing up in College Park. About you working 3 jobs. About visiting Grandma in the nursing home. About how ashamed I was of being poor." "How'd he take it?" "He was angry, really angry. We fought for 2 days straight." She smiled slightly. "But then something shifted. He said he'd rather be married to someone honest who came from nothing than someone dishonest who came from money." Smart man. "I also told him about this place, about how you eat here all the time, how the servers know you. He wants to come next time to meet Rita and see this part of your life. It was a small thing, maybe, but it felt significant." "I'd like that." Rita returned with our food, and we ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The waffle was perfect. Crispy outside, fluffy inside, drowned in syrup the way I liked it. "I visited Grandma yesterday," Michelle said. "First time in 2 years." I set down my fork. "How was she?" "She didn't know me, kept asking who I was, why I was there." Michelle's voice cracked. "I told her I was her granddaughter, and she said her granddaughter was just a little girl. She wanted to know where you were, if you were coming to visit." "I go every week. Sometimes she recognizes me, sometimes she doesn't." "I should have been visiting too. All this time I've been so focused on building my new life that I abandoned the people who built me." She looked at me. "I'm so sorry, Dad, for all of it. For being ashamed of you, for lying about you, for treating you like you were disposable. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough, right? You said I need to be better." "That's right. So I'm trying. I called Spellman yesterday and asked about their first-generation student support program. They're starting a mentorship initiative, and I volunteered to help." She pulled out her phone and showed me an email. "And I reached out to that non-profit Caroline Morrison works for. I want to get involved in helping students who come from backgrounds like mine." I read the email, feeling something loosen in my chest. "This is good, Michelle. I also did something else." She pulled out another piece of paper, a Facebook post, printed out. "I wrote this last night. I haven't posted it yet. I wanted you to see it first." I read it. "I need to tell you all something I should have said a long time ago. My father's name is Robert Chen. He raised me by himself after my mother died when I was 7. He worked 3 jobs to put me through Spelman College. He saved 3 children from a burning building and received a Community Hero Award from the mayor. He's the kindest, most selfless person I know, and I've been ashamed of him. I've been ashamed because he's a custodian, not a CEO. Because he lives in a small apartment, not a mansion. Because he doesn't play golf with governors or sit on corporate boards. I was so desperate to fit in with people I thought were better than me that I erased my own father from my story. I told people he was dead. I hid him from my friends, my fiancé, my new family. I was wrong, so incredibly wrong. My father is worth more than all the money and status in the world. His worth is measured in sacrifice, in love, in the kind of integrity that can't be bought. I'm sharing this because I'm done being ashamed. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. My name is Michelle Chen, and my father is a custodian who worked himself to exhaustion to give me opportunities he never had, and I'm proud of him. If you can't respect that, then you're not someone I want in my life. Dad, if you're reading this, I love you. I'm sorry. And thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. I read it twice, my vision blurring. You're really going to post this? If you'll let me. I know it's public and it might embarrass you. Post it, I said, my voice rough. Please. She did it right there, hitting share on her phone. Within seconds, comments started appearing. I watched her face as she read them. Some supportive, some shocked, some from friends saying they'd had no idea. One comment caught my attention. It was from Brandon. I'm proud of you for telling the truth. And I'm proud to be married to someone brave enough to admit when they were wrong. Looking forward to meeting your dad properly at Waffle House next week. Michelle laughed through tears. He's such a dork. But he loves you. Yeah, he does. She wiped her eyes. Mrs. Morrison, Catherine, she's been amazing through all this. She told Brandon's father that if he can't accept you, he can't accept her grandson's wedding. Put her foot down about it. She's a force of nature. She asked me to have you call her. Something about a project she wants to discuss with you. I made a mental note to call Catherine later. How are things with Brandon's father? Michelle made a face. Frosty. He's not happy about any of this. But Catherine says he'll come around, and apparently when she says something will happen, it happens. We finished our food and Rita brought the check. Michelle reached for it, but I beat her to it. Dad, I said my treat. Next time. This time is on me. I paid, leaving Rita a generous tip. As we walked outside into the humid afternoon, Michelle turned to me. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you come to the wedding? After I told you not to, after I made it clear I didn't want you there, why did you still come? I thought about it. Because you're my daughter, and no matter how much you hurt me, no matter how ashamed you were of me, I couldn't miss one of the most important days of your life. Even if I had to watch from across the street, I needed to be there. That's God, Dad, that makes what I did so much worse. Maybe, but it also means there's something worth fighting for, worth rebuilding. She hugged me then, right there in the Waffle House parking lot. A real hug, tight and desperate, like she was afraid I might disappear. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I'm going to do better. I promise. I know you will. The Atlanta Community Center was packed for the first session of the first-generation student mentorship program. Caroline Morrison had worked tirelessly to get it off the ground, partnering with local colleges and businesses to create a comprehensive support network for students whose parents hadn't attended college. I stood at the front of the room with 9 other mentors, looking out at 50 nervous students. They were young, high school seniors and college freshmen mostly, and their faces reflected the same uncertainty I'd seen in Michelle's face when she'd started at Spelman. Welcome, Caroline said, addressing the crowd. You're here because you're pioneering something in your families. You're the first to attend college, and that comes with unique challenges. But you're not alone. Each of you will be paired with a mentor who understands what you're going through. She went on to introduce the mentors. When she got to me, she paused. This is Robert Chen. Robert worked 3 jobs to put his daughter through Spelman College. He's a Community Hero Award recipient. And he's proof that you don't need money or connections to make a difference. You just need determination and heart. After the introductions, students rotated through speed meeting sessions with mentors. I met a 17-year-old girl named Jasmine, whose parents were both factory workers. A 19-year-old named Marcus, whose mother cleaned houses. A shy kid named David, whose father drove for Uber. All of them had the same questions. How do I afford books? What if I don't fit in? What if I'm not smart enough? What if everyone else knows things I don't? I told them the truth. It would be hard. They would feel out of place sometimes. They would struggle. But they were capable of more than they knew. My daughter graduated from Spelman, I told one group. She's successful now, married, building a good life. And she did it coming from nothing. You can too. After the session, Michelle showed up. She'd started volunteering with the program too. She brought Brandon, who'd been awkward at first but gradually warmed up as he talked to students about navigating corporate internships. How'd it go? Michelle asked as we cleaned up. Good, really good. I stacked chairs, something I'd done in 1,000 buildings over the years. These kids remind me of you at that age. Smart, ambitious, scared. Did you tell them I was an ungrateful brat who tried to erase her father? I left that part out. She laughed, and Brandon joined us, helping with the chairs. Mr. Chen, he said formally, I wanted to thank you for giving Michelle and me another chance. I know I didn't make a great first impression. You called me an annoying beggar and had me thrown out of your wedding. No, not a great first impression. Brandon winced. Yeah, about that, but you've done better since. That's what matters. We'd been building a relationship slowly, Brandon and I. Sunday dinners at my apartment where I'd cook Chinese food and tell stories about Michelle's childhood. Visits to see Michelle's grandmother, where Brandon sat patiently while she told the same stories over and over. He was trying, genuinely trying, to understand and appreciate the world Michelle came from. And Michelle had kept her promises. She'd introduced me to her friends, posted photos of us together on social media, talked openly about my work. The shame was gone, replaced by something that looked like pride. Catherine had become a surprising ally and friend. She'd connected me with other community organizations, helped expand the mentorship program, and occasionally invited me to dinner at the Morrison estate, where her husband now grudgingly acknowledged my presence. Robert, Catherine had told me at one of those dinners, you've taught me something important. I spent so many years in circles where money was the measure of worth. But watching you with these students, seeing how you've handled Michelle's betrayal with grace, you've reminded me what actually matters. Careful, I teased. You're starting to sound like a radical. Maybe I am. Maybe it's about time. Now, standing in the community center with Michelle and Brandon, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. My phone buzzed. A text from Rita at the Waffle House. Got a new pie flavor. Key lime. Saved you a slice. Come by tomorrow? I smiled and texted back, I'll bring Michelle and Brandon. Time they experience the full Waffle House menu. Dad's taking us to Waffle House tomorrow, Michelle told Brandon. Fair warning, it's going to ruin you for all other breakfast food. I'm in, Brandon said, though my trainer's going to kill me. Tell your trainer some things are worth the calories, I said. As we locked up the community center and walked to our cars, I thought about the journey that had led here. The pain of being called an annoying beggar, the humiliation of being thrown out of my daughter's wedding, the heartbreak of hearing her say she didn't know me, but also the redemption, the rebuilding, the slow, difficult work of healing and growth. Michelle wasn't perfect. She still sometimes struggled with class anxiety, still occasionally cared too much about what Brandon's wealthy friends thought. But she was trying. She was showing up. She was doing the work. And that was enough. "Hey, Dad," Michelle called as I reached my car. "Same time next Thursday, for our mentorship planning meeting. Wouldn't miss it. And bring Grandma's fried rice recipe. Some of the students asked about learning to cook affordable meals." "Will do." I drove home through familiar Atlanta streets, past the buildings I'd cleaned for decades, through neighborhoods I knew by heart. My apartment was the same small space it had always been, but it didn't feel empty anymore. That night, I pulled out the box where I kept important things: Jennifer's wedding ring, Michelle's baby pictures, the Community Hero Award from the mayor, and now something new, a printed copy of Michelle's Facebook post. "My father is worth more than all the money and status in the world. His worth is measured in sacrifice, in love, in the kind of integrity that can't be bought." I read it again, then carefully placed it in the box. My son-in-law had called me an annoying beggar at his wedding, but his mother had recognized me for who I truly was, and slowly, painfully, Michelle had too. That recognition, that respect, was worth more than any apology. It was worth everything. The banquet hall at the Atlanta Marriott was elegant but not ostentatious. Catherine had insisted on hosting the first-year anniversary celebration for the mentorship program here, and she'd spared no expense. 50 students who'd completed their first year of college filled the room, along with their mentors, families, and supporters. The energy was electric, success stories waiting to be told. I sat at a table with Michelle, Brandon, and Caroline. Catherine was at the podium giving the opening remarks. "1 year ago, we started this program with a simple idea: that every student deserves support, regardless of their family's educational background. Today, I'm proud to announce that all 50 of our first cohort completed their freshman year. Not just completed, thrived. The average GPA is 3.4, 70% are involved in campus organizations, and 100% report feeling more confident about their ability to succeed in college." The room erupted in applause. "This success is due to our incredible mentors," Catherine continued. "People who volunteered their time, shared their wisdom, and reminded these students that their backgrounds aren't limitations, they're strengths." She paused. "I'd like to recognize someone special. Robert Chen, would you come up here?" I stood, surprised, and made my way to the podium. "Robert was one of our founding mentors," Catherine said. "He's mentored 5 students this year. But more than that, he's been the heart of this program. His story, working 3 jobs to put his daughter through college, never giving up despite obstacles, has inspired not just his mentees, but all of us." She turned to me. "Robert, we'd like to name you our Mentor of the Year. But more importantly, we'd like to offer you a position. We're expanding the program, and we need a full-time coordinator. The job is yours if you want it." I stared at her. "A full-time position? Salary, benefits, the works. You'd be training new mentors, working with students, helping us expand to other cities. Your janitorial work has been valuable, but I think you have something even more valuable to offer." I looked out at the room, at the students I'd mentored who were beaming at me, at Michelle, who had tears in her eyes, at Brandon, who was clapping enthusiastically. "I accept," I said. The room erupted again. Later, after the formal program ended and people mingled, Michelle pulled me aside. "Dad, you're really going to do this? Leave custodial work?" "It's time. I've been cleaning buildings for 30 years. Maybe it's time to build something else." "I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of you too. You've come a long way this year." She had. Michelle had become a passionate advocate for first-generation students. She'd used her position at her marketing firm to create paid internships specifically for students from low-income backgrounds. She'd reconnected with old classmates from her own Spelman days, organizing support networks. The shame that had driven her to erase me was gone, replaced by purpose. "Mrs. Morrison, Catherine, she's incredible," Michelle said. "Without her, none of this would exist. She's something special." As if summoned, Catherine appeared. "There's someone I want you both to meet." She led us to a corner where a dignified black woman in her 60s stood talking with several students. "Robert, Michelle, this is Dr. Angela Freeman. She's the new president of Clark Atlanta University." We shook hands, and Dr. Freeman smiled warmly. "Catherine's told me all about you, Mr. Chen. Your story is exactly what we need more of in higher education. Examples of people who've overcome barriers to create opportunities for themselves and others." "Thank you. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in speaking at our freshman orientation this fall. We have a lot of first-generation students, and I think your perspective would be valuable." Before I could answer, Michelle spoke up. "He'd be honored. And if you're looking for corporate partners for student support programs, I can connect you with some companies that might be interested." Dr. Freeman's eyes lit up. "I'd appreciate that. Let's schedule a meeting." As she walked away, I looked at my daughter. "Look at you, networking. I learned from the best. You never gave up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. The least I can do is help other people the way you helped me." Brandon joined us, holding champagne flutes. A toast. "To new beginnings." We clinked glasses, and I looked around the room. A year ago, I'd been a custodian whose daughter was ashamed of him. Now I was a mentor, a program coordinator, someone whose story inspired others. The transformation hadn't been easy. There had been painful conversations, difficult realizations, tears and anger and slow, gradual healing, but we'd made it through. "Dad," Michelle said softly, "I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for showing up at the wedding even when I told you not to. Thank you for giving me the chance to be better. You did the work, baby. I just didn't let you quit. That's love, right? Not letting someone quit on themselves? That's exactly what it is," Catherine returned, her eyes twinkling. "One more surprise. I pulled some strings with the mayor's office. They're presenting you with a special recognition at next month's City Council meeting. The Community Impact Award. Catherine, you didn't have to." "Of course I did. You changed my son's life by teaching him what real worth looks like. You changed Michelle's life by showing her that integrity matters more than image. And you've changed 50 students' lives this year by believing in them." She raised her glass. "To Robert Chen, proof that the measure of a person isn't what they own, but what they give." Everyone in earshot raised their glasses and echoed the toast. I stood there, surrounded by people I'd impacted and who'd impacted me, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. For Catherine, who'd seen past my circumstances to my character. For Michelle, who'd found her way back to her truth. For Brandon, who'd learned to value substance over status. For all the students who'd trusted me to guide them. The boy who'd grown up poor, the immigrant son who'd worked his way through life, the single father who'd sacrificed everything for his daughter, that boy, that man, had become someone who mattered. Not because of wealth or status, but because of character. My phone buzzed, a text from Rita at the Waffle House. "Heard about your new job. So proud of you, honey. But don't forget about us little people when you're fancy." I laughed and texted back, "Same booth, same order, same time next week." Some things don't change, because that was the truth I'd learned through all of this. You could grow, evolve, take on new roles and responsibilities, but you never had to leave behind who you were at your core. I was still the custodian's son who believed in hard work, still the single father who'd do anything for his child, still the man who ate at Waffle House and knew all the servers by name. But now I was also more, a mentor, a program coordinator, someone whose story inspired others to believe in themselves. Michelle leaned her head on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "Your mother. Wishing she could see this. I think she can, and I think she'd be proud. Of both of us. She'd definitely be proud of you. You've become the woman she hoped you'd be. Because I had you showing me the way, even when I didn't want to see it." Brandon approached with an older couple, his parents. Mr. Morrison still looked uncomfortable around me, but Mrs. Morrison had insisted that bridges could be built. "Robert," Mr. Morrison said stiffly, extending his hand. "Congratulations on your new position." I shook his hand. "Thank you, sir. My wife tells me you're going to be coordinating the expansion of the mentorship program." "That's the plan." He nodded, and for a moment I thought that would be the end of the conversation. But then he said, "I owe you an apology. For how I treated you at the wedding, for assuming the worst based on appearances. Water under the bridge. Catherine says I have a problem with judging people's worth by their bank accounts." He glanced at his wife, who was watching him with an encouraging expression. "She's probably right. You're doing important work, work that matters. I can respect that." It wasn't a warm embrace, but it was progress. Sometimes that was all you could ask for. As the evening wound down, students began sharing their success stories. Jasmine, the girl whose parents were factory workers, talked about making the dean's list. Marcus, whose mother cleaned houses, spoke about starting a business club on campus. David, the shy kid whose father drove for Uber, had come out of his shell and joined the debate team. Each story was a testament to what was possible when someone believed in you. "Mr. Chen," Jasmine said when she found me after her speech, "I wanted to tell you something. My parents came to campus last month for family weekend. And instead of being embarrassed about them, like I was at the beginning of the year, I introduced them to everyone. My roommate, my professors, my friends. How'd that feel? Scary at first, but then liberating, like I'd been carrying this heavy secret and finally put it down." She smiled. "You told me that our backgrounds are part of our strength, not something to hide. I finally believe that." "Good. Hold on to that belief. It'll serve you well." After she walked away, Caroline appeared at my elbow. "You're a natural at this, you know. Making people feel valued and seen. I had good training. 21 years raising a daughter teaches you a lot about meeting people where they are. Well, you're going to be doing a lot more of it. We've already had 3 other universities reach out about replicating the program. You're going to be busy. Busy is good. Beats sitting alone in my apartment wondering where I went wrong with Michelle. You didn't go wrong. She just had to find her own way back to what you taught her." The party continued late into the evening. By the time it wrapped up at 11, I was exhausted but filled with a bone-deep satisfaction I'd rarely felt in my years of custodial work. Michelle and Brandon gave me a ride home. As we pulled up to my apartment building in East Point, Michelle said, "Dad, Brandon and I have been talking about buying a house." "That's great. You two are ready for that." "We want to buy in College Park, near where I grew up, near Grandma's nursing home, so we can visit her more easily." I turned to look at her. "Really? Not Buckhead or Roswell? Really? I want to be close to our roots, to remember where we came from." She glanced at Brandon, who nodded. "And when we have kids, I want them to know their grandfather, to spend time with you, to learn from you." My throat tightened. "You're going to make me cry." "Good. You've earned the right to happy tears." I hugged them both goodnight and walked up to my apartment. Inside, I looked around at the small space that had been my home for 15 years. Soon I'd be able to afford something bigger, something nicer. The coordinator position paid well. Catherine had made sure of that. But I wasn't sure I wanted to leave. This apartment held memories. Michelle's childhood art project still on my refrigerator. The couch where she'd done homework while I made dinner. The bedroom where I'd read her bedtime stories. Maybe I'd stay. Maybe bigger wasn't always better. I made tea and sat by my window, looking out at the Atlanta skyline in the distance. Somewhere out there, 50 students were going to bed tonight with more hope than they'd had a year ago. Michelle was building a life that honored both her ambitions and her roots. Catherine was using her privilege to create opportunities for others. And me? I was exactly where I needed to be. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Michelle. "Love you, Dad. Thank you for teaching me that worth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the lives we touch and the love we give. You're the richest man I know." I read it 3 times, then saved it to my favorites. My son-in-law had called me an annoying beggar, but his mother had recognized me as something else entirely. A man of character, of integrity, of genuine worth. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, my daughter had recognized it too. That recognition had transformed everything. Not just for Michelle and me, but for 50 students who now believed in themselves. For Catherine, who'd learned to value substance over status. For Brandon, who discovered that family wasn't about pedigree, but about love. I finished my tea and went to bed, my heart full of gratitude and hope. Tomorrow, I'd start my new job. I'd visit my mother at the nursing home. I'd have lunch with Michelle at Waffle House. I'd begin planning the expansion of the mentorship program. But tonight, I'd simply rest in the knowledge that I'd done something right. That despite all my mistakes and limitations and struggles, I'd raised a daughter who'd found her way back to her truth. And I'd discovered my own worth along the way, not in spite of being a custodian, but because of what I'd done with that role. I'd worked hard, sacrificed for my family, maintained my integrity, and ultimately used my experience to help others. I'd been called an annoying beggar, but I'd proven to be so much more. I was Robert Chen, father, mentor, community hero. A man whose worth couldn't be measured in bank accounts or job titles, but in the lives he'd touched and the love he'd given. And that was worth more than all the money in the world.